afternoon, we're going to talk about living benefits and enrolling employees. So, put together a couple of things. I did hand out some copies of, there is a script available for using when enrolling employees in living benefits. I kind of cut and pasted comments out of there to make it specific to each policy, because in the script itself it kind of bounces back and forth between one policy to the other. This way we have all of dialogue based on the particular policy in question. So kind of how our team, Amanda's team, does it when we go through the benefits. We get to living benefits and say living benefits are benefits that pay directly to you, whereas life insurance pays to the beneficiary. So the first one we talk about would be the cancer endurance plan. And we always use these laminated sheets when we're talking to the employees. That way we have all the bullet points here, we can show it to them and talk about it. So starting with the needs planner and the cancer endurance, let's start out and say, okay, so God forbid if anyone in your family was diagnosed with cancer, would you have the means to cover things like lost wages, additional medical expenses, other loss of income? And it's either a yes or no answer at that point. We're going to assume no, we don't have any kind of coverage for cancer endurance plan. That was their answer. So what I do, say cancer endurance, probably my favorite policy for a couple different reasons. One, once you sign up, you are covered for life. Your payment is not going to change. Your coverage is not going to change for as long as you keep the policy. You can cover yourself, you can cover your spouse, you can cover your whole family. This policy is guaranteed to stay with you. It is a pre-tax policy. It is 100% portable policy. The second nice thing is all of the benefits on here, there is no lifetime limit on these benefits. So that means there is not a financial limit on what it pays out, and there's not a number of use limit either, which is extremely important if you're dealing with something as chronic as cancer, because as you know, cancer can go in remission, it can come back, you can deal with it for a long time. This policy will stay with you and cover you for as long as you live. It's a very important part of this policy. Then I hit the highlights of the policy coverage, starting with the first diagnosis. Cancer diagnosis, upon first diagnosis, it will pay you $3,500 tax-free to you. That is what starts this policy. And there are a lot of really good benefits on this policy. I'm just going to highlight some of the more common ones for you. It has a hospital confinement rate. This will pay you a daily rate every single day you're in the hospital. So it doesn't matter how many days you're in the hospital, whether you're in for a while, you're out, you're back in, it will pay you every single day, as long as you need it. Surgeries, it covers up to $2,000 per surgery. Does not matter how many surgeries you may need, it will cover you on each one. A really important benefit for women is the post-mastectomy reconstructive surgery. And I will say this is an Illinois policy. In Missouri, this does not pertain. But in Illinois is where I mostly enroll. The post-mastectomy reconstructive surgery is covered under this policy. A lot of policies don't. It's considered cosmetic and they won't cover it. Very important part to that policy. Another very important aspect is radiation chemotherapy treatments. This will pay up to $500 a day, every single day. It does not matter how many treatments you have to have. We actually have a policy holder who had 45 radiation treatments over several months. That one benefit alone paid her $22,500. That usually gets a pretty good response when I bring that up, talking to an employee. It's usually like, oh wow, really? And they're thinking, that is a lot of money. So I always do mention that example when I'm going through this policy, because it really seems to hit with a lot of people when you do that. I then go to the prescription chemotherapy drugs, because that pays up to $10,000 a year, and that's every year. It does also cover new and experimental treatments, which a lot of policies do not.
Real quick, on the prescription chemo or the prescription drugs, Derek had a client that this was his prescription list for 1 year, and the drugs piled up to $308,000, and I think we paid like 30-something thousand on that.
How
That's
much?
awesome.
$308,000.
Gosh, what was wrong with the guy?
I don't know. He had blood cancer. No blood cancer.
Yikes.
He's superintendent of school, but yeah, it shows all the prescriptions breakdown of everything for the year. Yeah, it came up to total dollar amount of $308,000.
Did his health insurance pay for any of that?
Yeah,
Some.
Yeah, some. But this was just all the prescriptions. So I know we paid out, like the company paid out the 10, and then some of these were also labeled as chemo, like pills, I guess you take. So that's why they paid out more. So this is a good sheet. I don't know if anybody wants this. I can make copies of this.
Yeah, that's good,
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
good.
something that does come up in conversation when you're going through the cancer policy and people are wondering about the coverage. And, you know, one of the bullet points in the policy, in the brochure, and over 60% of the cost is not direct cost. So it is things like lost wages and other expenses that medical insurance doesn't pay. That's why this policy is so nice, because again, all the benefits pay directly to them.
Yeah, it says total copay was $2,000, so that's what he paid after cost, but still out of pocket, that would have been.
And that's not bad. That's not bad. Whenever he got 30,000 from us.
300.
Can
Yeah.
can you make me a copy of that?
Yeah.
So I can
make copies of
I always mention the transportation part as well, the 6 trips anywhere in the country for them and a guest. Because again, you know, that just adds a lot of emphasis to the value of the policy. And then they jump down to the bottom with the dread disease. And again, it's good to bring that up. So if they do have something like Lou Gehrig's or meningitis, MS, multiple sclerosis, if they're diagnosed with one of those, it will pay the hospitalization benefit for that. And again, it just kind of ties in that not only is it great for cancer, but the off chance that one of those come up. And some, I mean, I do know people with meningitis. I know people with, with MS. So, and a lot of people do. It is something that happens. So it's not that rare that people can kind of identify with that as well and say, hey, you know what, this is a really good policy. One thing that I do, and I think our whole team does different than, again, following the script, is that once we get done with explaining the policy, then we'll go ahead and continue. What happened there?
He just went to sleep.
Wake up. Nobody said you could go to sleep. No. Probably because I'm not plugged in. Sorry. Come on. So following the needs planner, explain the cancer endurance program to them. Then next thing, go, okay, so covered cancer, if one of your family members were diagnosed with heart attack, stroke, kidney failure, had to have organ transplant, loss of eyesight, loss of hearing, again, would you have the means, the funds for loss of income, extra medical expenses, things that your other insurance wouldn't pay? No, not really. Okay. So critical illness works a little bit different than the cancer policy I just explained. Critical illness is policy where you pick an amount of coverage between $10,000 to $50,000. If you were diagnosed with one of these conditions, that amount would pay directly to you, tax-free, and then you do whatever you need to do with the money to cover lost on the needs planner itself and say, okay, similar to the critical illness policy I just explained, we also have something called cash cancer. Works just like the critical illness policy does, but it pays in addition to where the cancer endurance policy leaves off, meaning that you pick an amount, again, between $10,000 to $50,000. If you were diagnosed with cancer, it immediately pays you that amount tax-free. And some clients, policyholders will get the cancer endurance policy for the continued coverage, but they'd like a little bit more cash up front if they are diagnosed with cancer to help with immediate bills, loss of income, things like that, so they could get this additional cash cancer coverage for a total amount of coverage if they want up to $50,000. That way, initial onset being diagnosed with cancer, they get that lump sum payment, and then the cancer endurance policy will be there to cover every other expense that they have. So that's the way to kind of tie those two together and explain it. To me, it makes a lot more sense to do the critical illness, explain how that all works, because this works pretty much identical to it. Then from there, following the needs planner, okay, if anyone in your family had some kind of an accident, had to go either to emergency room, urgent care, for any kind of injury, anything from the outside in, any kind of injury, do you have any kind of protection that would help pay in addition, again, to any other medical insurance you have, cover any lost wages if you had to miss a day of work? No, we really don't have anything like that. Okay, great. So we have this accident protector max policy, actually been a very popular policy for us for a couple of different reasons. One, it does cover you 24 hours a day, does not matter where you get hurt. Even if you got hurt at work, for instance, work incident is considered a workman's comp claim, but this would pay in addition to that directly to you. So it will pay you in addition to any other coverage that you may have. Another nice thing with this as well, what we see the most use is what they call the emergency treatment part of the policy, and how that works. It's based off of the bill where you go. So you know, if you go to the emergency room for anything, it's like $1 bazillion just to walk in the door to see anybody, if they look at the bill. So even if you have medical insurance, you may have a copay, out of pocket, it doesn't matter, they don't look at that, they look at the actual bill from where you go. And that will pay you $500 for your emergency room visit. Okay, so let's say you had to go to the hospital, it was more than just a sprain or strain, and you ended up getting admitted, it would pay you an additional $1,000 on top of the $500. If you get admitted and stay in the hospital, starting with day one, it will pay you a daily hospital rate every single day up to 6 months in the hospital. Very long time for coverage. And again, this is in Illinois. So that daily rate is $300 a day. And that, again, every day up to 6 months. If for some reason you end up in intensive care, it's 2 times the daily rate plus the daily rate, so it's paying you $900 a day in intensive care. If your injury involves something like a broken bone, it would pay you another $250. If you had to get blood, another $2. If you go by ambulance, another $3. All these stack on top of each other. It pays directly to you using what they call quick claims. So how that works, again, going back to the bill, you have to send them a copy of the bill along with the routing information for your account, and literally 24, 48 hours, the money's in your account. It's that quick. Okay? So the last thing I have, kind of in addition to the accident plan, do you have any kind of policy that would help cover you for if you had to go in intensive care for any reason? So right now, the COVID and the pandemic and people ending up in hospital intensive care. Intensive care costs obviously are a lot more than normal hospital room costs. And this intensive care protector can help cover that for you. Do you have any kind of plan that would help cover those additional intensive care costs if for some reason you ended up in intensive care for any reason? No. Okay, so how this kind of works, intensive care plan covers you, it would pay you up to $1,000 a day if you were admitted into intensive care for any reason. It would cover you up to 30 days in intensive care for each injury or situation. If you end up in intensive care because of an accident,
Sorry.
if you end up in intensive care because of an accident, it will pay you $1,000 a day for the accident, in addition to the $1,000 a day for being admitted into intensive care, for a total of $2,000 a day if it is an accident-related reason you're in intensive care. In addition to that, if you come out of intensive care, you go into a regular room, it will pay you $200 a day. If you're in a regular room, it will pay you $200. If you have to get blood, it will pay you $200 if you go by ambulance. So just a really nice additional policy to cover any reason you may end up in intensive care. Okay, so that's kind of going through the policies. Next step after going through the policies would go through, based on the interest, would write the amounts down for coverage on a piece of paper, blank piece of paper. Once we write those down, would present it to the employee and say, okay, so here's the rates for the policies that we discussed, kind of how our policies work. You don't have to pick one to get the other. It's kind of like an a la carte thing. Just looking at this, which of these makes the most sense for you for coverage, and then wait for the response. So you're telling them to confirm after you gave them the information that they were interested on based on their responses, and we've laid it all out for them, the cost, whether they want individual, whether they want family plan, all laid it out in front of them, and then wait for them to kind of give a response. And then say, yeah, I want the cancer endurance, I want the accident plan. Obviously, we've already talked to them about the life insurance policies first, but since we're looking at the living benefits, it's kind of how we go through that. Any questions on that part of it? No? Okay, so have a little extra treat for you guys if there's no questions on that. And some of you guys, give me a second to get through this. Some of you might remember this. We did something like this a while back. Now, we can do this. Hopefully you guys can see it.
Oh, sure.
Since we're talking about the living benefits, and when we sit down and when we talk to employees, and obviously sometimes they have questions, or when you sit down and you're getting information and signing up for policies, one thing you obviously will get, one of the first things you get is their age, right? And then as you go through, you're gonna get some of their health history as well, prior to getting too deep into offering them policies, because there's nothing worse than offering them something and then saying, just kidding, you don't qualify. So there are a couple quizzes, and again, it's in the back of the training guides. Some of these are pretty easy, you guys have dealt with them before. Some not so much, so we'll just take a couple of minutes to go through it. It's a good review. Kind of keep us to try and remember some of the ones that aren't maybe as common or we don't think about as much. So for number one, upon first diagnosis of cancer, what is the payout that individual gets? Anybody? $3,500. And how much, up to what amount do we pay for radiation chemotherapy treatments? 500. Okay. Here's an interesting one, and it's one of the ones that I don't really spend any time on when I'm going over benefits with them. Anesthesia is covered up to what percent?
25.
25, good. 30-day waiting period starts when?
Effective date.
On signature of the work site, yeah.
It technically is effective date, but since your work site, it goes from moment of signature. So if you wrote it on an individual, it would be effective date.
Yeah, cause I had something like that come up a while back. And the reason, because you could have a long open enrollment, and if they sign up at the beginning of the enrollment, then they could wait like a whole month extra, you know, and they sign, so technically it is from the date of signature.
Yeah, what is it, like kind of a grace period or something because your work site, so technically moment of signature, everything starts, except for the cash cancer and critical illness, that's 30 days.
And no lifetime max except for what? Yeah, the first occurrence benefit. And the issue age is from 0 to what? 70?
69.
69. And what kind of cancer is not covered for the first occurrence payout?
Cancer.
Skin.
Which one?
Skin
Skin.
cancer, melanoma.
And cancer is blank tax if what?
Employee.
Say the question again? What's the question again?
Cancer endurance is pre-tax if blank
Deducted?
payroll deducted. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
And plan pays how much for the first 90 days?
250.
And then after that, it's
600.
good. And new experimental treatments must be approved by which two agencies?
EFPA.
AMA.
And the AMA. Okay. The true false. Cancer endurance can only cover the employee. Cancer endurance can cover treatment anywhere in the U.S. as long as a physician recommends it.
True.
Cancer endurance can only be post-tax. Applicants who have been diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin's disease, leukemia, melanoma, or any form of malignant growth except skin cancer are ineligible for cancer endurance.
True.
True.
You can't get it if you've already had cancer.
So they can't have it.
Oh, they can't have it?
Yeah.
If they've already had cancer, they cannot get the cancer plan.
Okay.
Unless it's, what, basal cell?
Correct.
Basal cell is the only, because that's not included. Cancer endurance is not guaranteed renewable for life.
False.
Okay, good. Cash cancer. Premiums will increase as you age. No physical exam is required.
True.
Lump sum benefit is payable per occurrence of cancer. This benefit can be used for what the insured deems fit. Heredity cancer lineage is considered.
False.
Guaranteed renewable for life or until lump sum is paid.
True.
Pays in addition to any other insurance you may have. This will not cover you in a government or VA facility. You have to be hospitalized in order to receive payout. False. You can have multiple cancer policies alongside this policy.
Yes.
The insured is able to purchase policy benefits in the amount of what to what? 10 to 50. The issue age of cash cancer for an individual is ages what to what? No.
Yes.
Yep, that one's a little bit tricky.
To me, I was.
No, I'm sorry. I was gonna say 69, but I was waiting for her to say.
Cash cancer is paid in a blank benefit.
Lump sum.
Lump sum. And there's a waiting period of how many days?
30.
And the total amount of coverage an individual can have is,
50.
and the one time that may come into 47 technically on this, or 46.50, 50 total. So if they have this policy with $3,500 of coverage, they cannot exceed 50 total between the two. Correct, Brian?
Yep.
Okay, critical illness. Issue age for the policy on critical illness.
18 to 65.
Half right.
18 to 59. 64.
18 to
Damn it.
70.
No, it's not. It's younger than cancer.
60.
Oh, dang
That's
it.
18. Oh, wow.
18
It's 18, yeah.
to 60. And it can be provided in amounts of what to what?
10 to 50.
And what type of payroll deduction is that?
Post.
And guaranteed renewable to age 65. Okay, here's one. Every how many seconds in the US does a person suffer a stroke?
40.
40. We have gender specific rates. The payout of critical illness is given in a one-time lump sum.
Yes.
And this policy is only available through payroll deduction.
False.
Policy covers heart attack, stroke, end-stage renal failure, yada, yada, yada. True. This policy can be purchased as an individual, single parent, or family plan.
False. Only individuals.
Individual.
We changed it. It used to be family.
Critical illness is not portable.
False.
No benefit is payable if the covered critical illness first manifests itself during the 30-day waiting period. True. Policy terminates upon payment of a benefit or the policy anniversary immediately following the 65th birthday.
True.
The largest benefit amount of the critical illness protector is $35,000.
False.
And you can pay for an additional rider to extend your policy past age 65.
False.
Be nice. Two more. Accident protector plan protects you how many hours a day?
24/7.
Emergency treatment benefit pays 500, and the lump sum benefit after the first 24 hours of being admitted is
1,000.
1,000. The primary insured is covered for how much for death by a travel accident?
$250,000.
And after 3 or more years of owning the policy, the daily hospital confinement benefit rate in Missouri, so I'll clarify, because this one's been around for a little while, is 500. In Illinois, just to recap again, it changed the first year, it is $300 a day from day one, and it stays at $300 a day. So that is the difference between the two.
Well, it's not 150 to 500.
Nope.
No, it is
I
300.
haven't seen any brochure yet.
300. Yeah, there are a couple, that's one of, just a couple of differences between the two states now on that policy, but it's certainly worth remembering before you start explaining benefits, because it will make a difference. Accident Protector Max is only available in individual and two-parent family plans.
False.
Policy protects you for any emergency treatment due to an accidental injury. We will waive the premium of the Accident Protector Max with 30 days consecutive hospital stay. Emergency treatment benefit is only payable within 12
Thanks.
hours of visiting the ER.
48, unless it's Georgia, then it's 72.
The Accident Protector Max two-parent family plan is a pre-tax benefit.
True.
Within less than 1 year, the daily hospital confinement death is 200 per day. False. Right. It's 150. And again, in Illinois, it's 300 per day mark. Individual can add accidental death and dismemberment to accidental protector max for an additional rider premium. False. After an insured's 65th birthday, the accident protector max policy will terminate. 65th. Once they turn 65, what happens?
Terminate. Oh, you're just making it bigger.
Making it bigger. It's just a true or false. Number 8.
Read the question again, please, I can't see that far.
After an insured's 65th birthday, the accident protector max policy will terminate.
True.
True or false?
And that's true. Accident protector max policy not only covers accidental injuries, but also sickness. False. An accident protector max will cover loss of 2 or more limbs for an amount of $20,000.
True.
It is true. That's one you really don't think about too much on that loss of limb. I don't even like talking about it with the employee. We can cover that. I just say it has some,
That guy that
accidental
cut his
death and
finger, was it
dismemberment.
the whole finger or just the tip or the first?
No, the whole limb.
It was just the
People
tip.
limb.
But a limb is like an arm or
She
like,
had
Oh, yeah,
a
yeah.
guy at one of her places.
Yeah.
cut his
Arm,
finger.
leg.
So it's just the tip?
Yeah.
But still that hurts.
well, yeah. I wouldn't want to do it
No.
for show.
How did he do it? Did he didn't realize?
It's a meat
So
market,
last-
yeah.
Last
Chopped
one
it
is
with
the
a knife.
intensive care protector. So issue age for that policy is from what to what? From 0.
69, 65, 60. I don't know.
60.
This is all on the sheet. That's why I look at it
Yeah.
whenever I enroll.
So the critical illness, this, and the accident plan, the cutoff is
60.
60 for issue age. And it's probably because of Medicaid and Medicare things, once you turn 65. Daily intensive care benefit for intensive care protector is how much a day? And for how many days? Blood or any components given will pay what?
200
I'm hearing a lot of different, how many
In my defense,
Blood.
I don't have that sheet. So,
blood, if a person has to get blood during the hospital stay, it pays how much?
200, blood.
2. Yeah. And the policy is guaranteed renewable to what age? 65. Yeah, I was just saying, this policy, critical illness and accident all have the same words. You can insure them to 60, coverage to 65.
Yep.
And the ambulance benefit for this is how much?
300.
200.
200.
And the form of transportation, 300.
That's on the accident protector max.
Oh, what are we on? I'm sorry.
Intensive care.
This is
Oh,
intensive
my
care.
bad.
Yeah,
that's
you're a little
all it is.
behind on that. Yeah, with the intensive care, all the other benefits are 200.
Yeah.
But that's, one thing to note on this one is this is all based on 2 units of coverage. If someone selects 1 unit of coverage, all of these are half.
Okay.
And the premium is half. It's pretty much
Did you go over what the max benefit payout is?
on,
ICU.
well, I think it'll come up here in the true and false part maybe.
would the 2 units be like the employee and a spouse?
No.
Or
It's
was
like
it
if you
just-
wanted to take a policy out, you can take one out for 500 a day, or you can double it up to 1,000 per day.
Oh, okay.
That's what 2 units is.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, and then, I don't know, is that all the true and false, just those 4?
No,
Okay.
no, I'll scroll up. We just got through fill in the blanks, so here's the true false ones here. automobile travel accident benefits payable only if the insured is admitted to an ICU due to an accident within 48 hours. And the daily intensive care benefit is only payable for the first week of continuous ICU. Intensive care protector can be issued as a single parent or two parent family plan. Yeah, and the other thing that's wrong on there is the age range. Intensive care protector will pay for medical treatment if the insured is in the ICU due to sickness.
That's true.
There is no maximum limit for total benefits paid on this policy.
False.
True.
It's false.
Well, show us, Brian,
The
because
maximum benefit we'll pay is $30,000.
does it say that in the workplace
Says
bullet,
that. I'll look it
work
up.
market bulletin?
Yeah, that's what is in the policy, so it only pays out for, being in the ICU for 30 days after that.
At a time.
Yeah. So,
So that's different from.
No maximum limit.
Lifetime limit,
I mean,
because you can use the policy again.
okay.
Now, specifically, when I was looking in the coverage, that came up, and again, because this will cover them
Yeah,
for,
lifetime, yeah,
for the lifetime.
but yeah,
But
30
the
no longer
the
than-
maximum per use would be 30, right?
30 days, yeah,
$1,000 a day for 30 days, but that's not the maximum limit for the lifetime of the policy,
Okay.
Yeah, I have a
and that's what
question.
it's saying.
Great.
Mhm.
I heard this morning that Bob Flager, whatever his name was, had a heart attack, and that's what caused his accident. So let's say he didn't die, so would he get payment for, critical illness and then an accident also? Because his heart attack caused the car accident.
Yes, it depends on what he has for coverage. If you're looking like an example of what plans he would have with us, if he had a critical illness plan and he suffered a heart attack and that was documented, that would pay for that. If he had an accident,
Those are really tough situations, cause I know we had an issue where a guy got kicked by a cow. And that was an accident, and he ended up having a heart attack because of that, and we didn't pay out the critical illness policy on it. Because the accident caused, or it didn't directly cause it, it was like a day or two later, he had a heart attack, and they said that it was because of that, but it didn't pay out on that, so.
but if they had a heart attack first and then wrecked,
apparently
it would
he had
pay
the
for
heart
If he
attack
had a heart
first.
attack,
Yeah.
if that's what happened, it would pay the heart attack at least.
But it paid the heart attack, I don't know about the accident, I don't know for sure how that would work, but it's one of those, 1% of the time situations. Definitely send it down, file it, see what happens.
Yeah.
That's usually, if you're in a sticky situation, just send it down and see what they say, and then you can always, dispute it, or do whatever you need to do to try to, go back and forth with the
Cause
home
they said
office.
this morning, the autopsy showed he had a heart attack and that's what caused the accident. I guess everyone thought he was killed in the accident, but he wasn't. It
Well, he
was-
wouldn't have to worry about the accident part, then the only other thing would be, does he have life insurance?
Well, let's say he didn't die